Forget trying to keep up with AI. It's moving too fast. It's time to think differently about it. Welcome to the AI Readiness Project, hosted by Kyle Shamim and Ann Murphy. They're here to help you build the mindset to thrive in an AI-driven world and prepare for what's next.
Ann Murphy, what's happening?
You know, about our Bob, about our intro song. Did you hear that 11 Labs is now doing music and it's only trained on it's only trained on music they have the rights to?
Oh, I didn't hear that part of it, but I knew that they were number 4 in the entry of music. And our guest today, PJ, he and I go way back, so I'm super excited about this. But he's a musician from way back, so be curious to see his take on all these fancy dancy music makers.
Well, I can imagine that the people who are super grumpy about AI being trained on their music or other people's music it might be music to their ears that 11 Labs is just using stuff that they have the rights to.
Yeah, I think that we're going to start to get lots of options on the ethics part. Now that the horse is out of the barn, I think we'll start to see models that give people options. And I know that Adobe's working on attribution and compensation models where artists can opt into being trained on their things. So we'll see. Ultimately, we'll get there. I think we're in this short little blip of the pain of how these things were trained. But with that, why don't we jump in and just talk about, where's your head these days with AI and how ready are you for AI this week?
Well, how about you go first?
Okay, I will. So I'll tell you what I've been thinking a lot about, and that is, I get. So sometimes, as you know, I will post things on LinkedIn that say, hey, here's some interesting work. And occasionally I get kind of this blast to the face of hate. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the things that people talk about with AI is that if you're using AI, you can't possibly be creative. And I couldn't disagree with that more. Now, they're making some presumptions, which if people only interact with AI the way they think they do, then they're actually correct, right? The presumptions that what a lot of the haters make is, oh, you just push a button and out comes a song, and that can never be creative.
Right.
That's not how you have to use AI, right? In fact, I don't think that's a particularly interesting way to use AI. And in fact, if that's the way you use AI, all you're doing is contributing to a new kind of bottom of the ocean quality-wise. Like AI, it used to be with traditional stuff, the bottom was down here, and now with AI, the bottom's up here, but it's still the bottom.
Still the bottom, yes.
So well, how do you do something that rises above the noise? Well, you do something that rises above the noise by having an intention and having meaning and having a creative point of view and being like Rick Rubin, who's going to be a producer and curate the best things out of it. And maybe you don't just use one tool, but you use something over here for lyrics, and maybe you use an ancient technology called the whiteboard, where you maybe write down some ideas on a whiteboard and then you come back, right? So there's a chain of craft that happens with people that use AI tools as a creative expression that I am fascinated by. And I think a new kind of skill is being nimble with lots of tools, and you being sort of the idea person at the center of it, that you've got some idea, some intention, and you go, okay, I'm going to go into this thing, and I've got some intention of creating whatever, right? Some sort of entertainment or some sort of work product or whatever it might be. And then you nimbly go, okay, let me pull in this tool. I'll do a little bit over here, pull in this, do a little bit over here. One of the reasons I think about this is PJ, who we're going to meet, he is a multi-talented person. He's a successful many-time entrepreneur, but he's also an accomplished musician. He's an accomplished illustrator. He's got talents that are just beyond, right? And so he effectively functions as kind of the human representation of this new possibility that we all get, that we get to sit in the center of all of these remarkable tools. And if you kind of know what they are and know what they make possible, you can now start to express yourself in the world in ways that was never possible before. And so I find that very exciting. I like the idea that, I've always had a good eye for looking at something creative and going, I like that or I don't, but I've never had the skill of generating it myself. Well, now I can, right?
Yeah.
While I can write songs, I can only write songs in a very restricted area. But if I wanted to write like a Broadway show tune, I don't have the musical theory background for that. But now I do. Now I can do that. In fact, I've written a musical, right?
Yes.
With the leg up of AI. So for me, there is something, I'm going to use the word intoxicating. There is something intoxicating about living in a time where we get to just say, hey, what if I could do anything? And then have the intention, go learn the tools well enough to do it and do it. And the tools aren't quite there yet to do anything, but they're getting pretty darn good. And so anyway, that's where I am with AI this week, that I'm really excited about this idea of everyone now being enabled to be a multi-passionate.
Yeah. Yes.
Even if they didn't historically have the training or the skills or, the talent that someone like PJ has.
Yeah. Okay. So all of that, I am also obsessed with how we can take an idea over here, something we've never really, like, I don't know, it's a couple words I just heard, with something that we know everything about, mush them together and create some new thing. Because for us to digest all of the data around both of those two things, let alone, smush them together, would be a ginormous project. And for some people intellectually, and like I'm a good example, like I just kind of bump up against some limitations of my imagination, and they're real. So now I can use AI to bring those together. But what I'm especially excited about is, so if you reverse engineer this particular problem from, you look at like how many women are CEOs, how many women get VC funding, right? And then you start going like, well, why is that? Why is that? Deeper and deeper, you peel the onion. What's the problem? One of the problems, and this is, I'm not at all saying like this is women's fault, like at all, but one of the challenges is go to market. And one of the challenges there is that is imposter syndrome. So we've got this, bomb ass idea, right? Something that's never been invented before, but that solves a big pain point, fills a bunch of white space. We know there's a market for it, but we don't want to put it out there for the world because we're thinking we're not this enough, we're not that enough, it's not perfect enough, right? Yep. Versus OpenAI, which, we are OpenAI's R&D, but women want to make it absolutely perfect. So here now we have the opportunity to poke all the holes, right? You could take your idea and you can manipulate it a million different ways to find out what's wrong with it, what's missing, what are VC funders going to say? What questions do I need to ask in my product market fit interviews? How come I'm not doing my product market fit interviews? What are they not telling? Blah, 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 blah. And now we can accelerate beyond that imposter syndrome, which is a complicated thing, right? And I realize all genders have imposter syndrome to some degree, but and get that idea out where people can see it versus keeping it to ourselves. So
I think that's huge. I mean, you and I have talked about this, that early on in the AI salon, one of the things that I noticed, and it was with a lot of women doing it, but there were some men doing it too, but there was a lot of apologizing.
Yeah.
There was a lot of women going, well, I don't really have that many ideas, but here's the little one I had. There was a lot of apologizing. And so it was something we actively set out to squash. And one of the things that I've experienced over the 2.5, 3 years that I've been playing with this stuff, there is something about the tool. Not only does the tool make you capable and allow you to poke holes in things, there's something about the fact that it is essentially just an infinitely supportive voice that you give it an idea and it's like, oh, that's awesome, that's fantastic, and then you type in, well, I don't know how to go to market with this thing, and say, hey, not a problem, it's a great idea, here's the ways we might go to market. Like, I feel like it's a confidence building experience when you admit to this thing that you don't know how to do something. You don't get that human thing of like, oh, I thought you might have been smarter than that. Like, even if it's just an offhanded comment that a human makes, a lot of times that'll shut me down, or that'll shut someone down if they're not feeling confident, right? You don't get that with AI. So I think it's one of those things that really does allow for people, men and women, but particularly women, if this is an issue, to practice having confidence about that idea, to build up that idea, to not hide from it, to not shrink in the shadows because, oh, maybe the go-to-market is more of a male-dominated thing. Well, now with ChatGPT, you can go in there and blast their socks off with, with a plan, right? Yep. So, yeah, I think that's huge. That's huge.
So getting these wackadoodle ideas that you created with AI out into the world, like, that's huge. And now the world is better served because these ideas are out in the world. And that's how you figure out if the world actually needs and wants it, is you have to get it out, right?
You have to get it out. You have to get it out. It's one of the things that for me is the single most powerful thing about AI, for me personally, is that I can take what was a small idea and instantly realize it and look at it as if it was a big idea. Right? Because now it's out here and I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Huh. I wonder what that would look like. Now I know what that looks like. Ooh, that's really good. Or I see it and I'm like, that wasn't what I thought it would be. Right. But now it's out of my head and in the world. And you can just, if it's one of those things where you go, ooh, that's really good. Now you can just run down those rabbit holes one after the other. Let me make the soundtrack for this thing. Let me make the vision for this thing. Let me make the commercial for this thing. Let me make the business plan for this thing. Let me mock up the app for this thing. Let me do your go-to-market strategy. And how do I talk to cynical male VC investors in a way that I shut them up before they get to open their stupid mansplaining mouths?
Yes. Right? This is where my very first custom GPT would come in handy. My mansplaining detector.
Your mansplainer, exactly.
We could bring those to the pitches.
Exactly.
You know what this makes me think of is like the many, many times that we've heard and that you and I both said and experienced where there's something from our childhood where we got shut down. And I know you've got the story about being in the nurse's office at school and drawing, right? You were drawing something and they were like, no, it's not good. It means this. And then you find out later it's a sign of genius. Yeah. Well, one of my formative stories is I was in first grade and we were supposed to make an invention. And, I made an invention. It was called a recanerator. And it was a refrigerator that was just for cans. Well, and my teacher literally told me it was stupid. Well, I mean, look at the beer keg refrigerators.
Wine refrigerators. Sorry, you were ahead of your time.
I was way before my time because I don't think in 1979 or 8 or 80 or whatever, I don't think they had beer keg refrigerators then.
Yeah. No.
But I'm going to work with ChatGPT today and see what all the options for what a recanerator could have been.
You can launch it. Like do one.
I could go to market with it.
You can totally launch one. Yeah. It's brilliant. You're ahead of your time. Okay, so here's the thing that is semi-related to this that I think might be worth paying attention to. And I'm going to use a specific example, but I think moving forward, this example is just one of a rolling series of them that are coming. So we just recently got access to ChatGPT 5, and they got rid of ChatGPT 4. And there is a lot of noise and consternation about, well, I love ChatGPT 4, and how dare you take that away? And then there's a lot of angst about ChatGPT 5 is not as good. Well, it's a fundamentally different thing. Part of the reason ChatGPT 5 is not as good is most people probably don't know how to use it because 4 wasn't a reasoning model and 5 is, and it's just a different thing. And the thing that I talked about before, where AI has this ability to give you a sense of confidence in things you weren't good at, it also has the ability to take that confidence away. Like if you're working with a SaaS company like OpenAI or like Gemini or like any of them, at some point they're going to change the model and they're going to take something away. And the place where you had confidence and nimbleness with AI is all of a sudden you're not going to have that. And now you're going to be in this uncomfortable place. You're going to have to learn again. And so the thing I would say to pay attention to, it's got to do with adaptability, but it's also got to do with a bit of grace, that about the time you start to feel really confident with these tools, something's going to change that's going to throw you on your heels and make you go, maybe I don't really have it together. And so I don't know what to pay attention to. I don't know what the thing is to pay attention to, other than whatever your feelings are around that. Like, have your feelings, and just as quickly as you can, let go of whatever might be sort of a drag about losing access to something and not knowing really how to use this other thing. Just get used to that uncomfortableness, because I think that's going to keep coming for probably the next 5 years, maybe 10. Like, PJ and I know each other from the early days of the World Wide Web. And that took a long time to sort of navigate through, but the core technology there never really changed. It was all just fancier versions of clicking on a hyperlink. AI is completely different. Everything is transforming. Like, what's possible is transforming all the time. So I would say just pay attention to, your relationship of, if you don't feel as confident about something, don't apologize for it. Just accept, okay, I don't really have my shit together now. And now I'm gonna roll forward and try to figure it out just like I did before.
Okay. I think part of the piece of adaptability is accepting that you don't have to master this new approach overnight. Like, social media would make us think that if we don't have a point of view on ChatGPT 5 yet, we might as well not even get out of bed in the morning. It actually doesn't matter. You have plenty of time. It
doesn't matter. Yeah.
You have, it's not a race, right? You have plenty of time. You knew how to use ChatGPT 4. You're ahead of how many millions of people? You're good.
If you've heard of ChatGPT, you're ahead of millions of people.
Right? So the approach that I'm taking this time, Kyle, because I struggle with the play first. I don't allow myself to play very often, but I'm going to do a little bit of playing. But what I'm also going to do is, as I use ChatGPT for whatever specific business use case, I'm just padding the time so that I do have time to poke around. I'm not going to make up use cases. I'm just going to explore it in my daily life, and it might take me longer, but it's organic, it'll flow, it's going to happen. And this is the first time I've had no thoughts and big feelings about this new thing coming out where I felt like immediately I must know it all. I don't actually mind. I'll figure it out in due time.
That's great. I think that's a very healthy place to be. I mean, it has become, painfully clear to me. I kind of set up my brand around this AI stuff, that I'm going to pay attention to all of this, and I'm going to keep up with all of this. And I gave that up about a year ago, but I think your point is a really good one, that even a single tool, you might be aware of it, you might use it a lot and things like that. Your level of mastery of that is likely going to take you a while. Like ChatGPT itself used to be this single thing, and it had a couple of settings. It's now 25 different features and tools and custom instructions and projects and custom GPTs and this model and that model. Like, even the new one that's supposed to not have all the model choices still has model choices, right? Just your ability to be competent with something might take you 3 months. Now, might someone else get there in 3 days? They might, but they might also be full of crap, right? And so I think it's just, I think our ability to give ourselves a little bit of grace, not feel like we have to apologize for not being perfect at something right away. If you're in this game, and not feeling like you're going to miss the boat if you're not up to speed, I think is actually a really important piece of this. The other reason I'm excited to have PJ on is because he's done so many things in his life analog, right? Like he learned to be a musician analog and an illustrator analog and an entrepreneur analog. He can now look at this AI stuff and he's going to have a good perspective on it, right? That in the olden timey world, you had to put in your 10,000 hours, right? And maybe you don't need to put in 10,000 hours now, but you know what? Maybe you need to put in 500.
Yes.
And that's okay. It's okay. This thing isn't magic, right? It's not a genius, right? This is, what is serving you and what you want to do. And then however long it takes you. And that's okay.
Yep. It's okay.
It's okay. Well, I'd love to get PJ up here, but why don't you tell the good people about She Leads AI? And
I sure will. So She Leads AI has grown from a couple of shout outs on LinkedIn in early 2024 to this whole ecosystem. And I'm really, really proud of it. And I'm so proud of all the women who are involved, which are many now. One of the things we have is an AI Academy that's run by Michelle Muncie Silva, our executive director. And she has put together some courses, one of which I'm super excited about, and that totally rhymes with what you did with your Back to the Basics last week.
Yeah.
We launched a AI Foundations for Beginners course. It's a workshop. It's one time a month. I think it's 90 minutes. It's a very friendly, meet you where you are thing. And this is our effort to make sure that the women who are on the sidelines have a place to go. And all the women who identify as beginners, which is, sometimes they're in charge of the rollout. They have been making agents, they just identify themselves as beginners. Okay. So they come to the beginners course and foundations. And then we launched our AI certified educator program, and we're working on some spotlight courses for this tool or this skill set. So we have our academy. We have our She Leads AI consulting agency, which is about to launch. We have all the women already ready to go, and it's incredible. And then we have our She Leads AI Society, which is our membership organization. And all of this comes together in October for our conference in Salt Lake City, October 11th through 14th, the Create Conference. We have pre-conference goodies, 2 days, and then a follow-up breakfast for people who want to come. And it is going to be dope.
So amazing. And it's also you may think in hearing Anne that this is something that's been going for a decade. This started as a single idea back in January, and now you've got all these different tracks. But I think it's in line with what we've been talking about, actually, right?
The
fact that you can take AI to help you take an idea and manifest it really quickly allows you to take a great idea like She Leads AI and figure out what your folks need and then provide that really quickly, right? And try it on with size. It's an incredible time and an incredible organization. So
let me give you an example, because this is a use case that our listeners may be interested in. We were able to take the transcripts, and each of them are 2 hours long. The transcripts from every single Saturday going back to, January 1st or whatever, analyze all of those. So we're thinking this is, 200 women for, 2 hours for every, it's a lot of insight. So we were able to analyze those to figure out what's the next product that we want to put out into the world. So it's if you're not sure if people want your thing, now you can be. We just did what the people told us, and we were able to figure that out because we were able to analyze massive tons of data.
Absolutely amazing. Well, similar to She Leads AI is the AI Salon. So this is a community that I started the week after ChatGPT came out, because having been in a tech revolution movie before, the early days of the World Wide Web, I saw this one. I'm like, oh, this one's bigger. This one's way more intense. And the whole idea of the AI Salon is to create a safe place for people who are curious about AI to come in no matter where they are and learn and be optimists and question what's going on and express themselves. And I think most importantly, we had a recent one of these that we did, Anne, where we talked about connection and relationships. And as I put on my sort of Spidey sense future goggles, the thing that feels most important to me is relationships, because all of the tactical skills are going to get democratized away and automated away with AI. And then what's left is, well, who do I want to work with? Well, I want to work with people who aren't jerks and who I know follow through on stuff and, show up and things like that. And how do you do that? Well, through relationships and being a part of a community. And so the AI Salon really is that kind of opportunity. I think the future of work for all of us is being in these kind of trusted relationships where you know that, okay, if I need to bring someone in for this, I know I can trust them. Not do they have the skill on their resume independent of whether or not I would ever want to work with them, right?
Yes, exactly.
And
exactly.
That's a big shift, right? And also really what work looks like might not be what it looked like before, right? You get laid off from a job because of AI. There's chances are good you're not going back into that line of work. So how do you reinvent yourself? Well, hang out with a bunch of people that are reinventing themselves, and maybe you'll get some inspiration there. And so that's what the salon's about. We also within the salon have the AI Salon Mastermind, which is a subscription area of that where you can dig deeper and build deeper relationships. So come check that out. And then finally, you want to tell the good people about the AI Readiness Training Program?
So the AI Readiness Training Program exists to help you grow your adaptability skills. It's not going to help you master any particular AI tool because, most of the ones that if we were to have put them in there in December, they would mostly be obsolete.
They would absolutely be obsolete.
It teaches you more of the mindset and the approach and being adaptable and how important it is to have the mindset like CJ Fletcher taught us that we talked about recently of, before you start pounding away at the keyboard to make a beautiful image, take a breath, close your eyes, and imagine what is the actual image. What do you see? And then go from there. That's the kind of skill set that you'll develop through the AI Readiness Program.
Yeah. To be good with AI means to have intentionality and taste and things like that. And that's what we'll teach you. So go check that out. AreYouReadyForAI.com. So with that, I am super excited. I'm going to tee up PJ here because I know him really well. So PJ and I worked together back at agency.com, and he was an artist there and a creative director, and is just a really amazingly talented guy, like one of the most talented people I know. And since our days back then has gone on to become quite an entrepreneur. And so I'll let him introduce all of his companies, but they're really quite remarkable. PJ and I have not only stayed in touch together over the years, but we've worked together over the years and started things together over the years. And I just respect the hell out of him. And I'm so excited to have him here. So PJ Loughran, thank you for joining us. I know this was not necessarily the most convenient of times, but
no, it's great. And Kyle, as I've always said, it's all your fault. All my a lot of my optimism toward entrepreneurship started with joining a company that was sort of a pioneer in a space where we were all trying to figure things out all the time. And then within 4 years had 1,500 employees. I mean, it's we made it look easy.
Yeah.
And it's not easy,
crazy,
but it really is. That's really where it all started for me. So.
Yeah, I think it's one of those fantasy things where one of the things that that I've always said someone is, when you play craps in Vegas, craps is one of those games where you can win money really fast or you can lose money really fast. And one of the things I always say is, I'll teach you how to use craps, but if we win, I want you to know that it's not always like this. And I feel like starting agency.com was one of those things where if you were there, it just against all odds, like this grew really, really fast. So it maybe gave you some confidence to try it on your own. And I'm sorry for that, because it really just doesn't happen that quickly all the time. But you've done amazing. So why don't you tell folks what you're up to? What do you want us to know about where you are right now, what you're doing? And I'd love for you to just, as you talk about that, I want to get into how you think that changes with AI or stays the same with AI, things like that. But catch us up to what you're up to.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think my path to even now is really twisty, and it's there's almost like it was because of different sort of paradigm shifts that happen at different times that I was just very lucky to probably not know how bad they were going to be, but to get a little bit ahead of them as they went. I'd love to just kind of talk about that, because everyone's flipping out about AI right now.
Yeah.
But I can go back to two shifts that really disrupted my businesses in the last 20 years that this will probably be bigger, but I honestly, I'm not sure, because the other two were pretty disruptive. But right now I own a company called Boathouse Holdings, which is it's essentially just a company that holds other companies. And really it's really a holding company for things that I'm making or things that I'm investing in, or partnerships that I'm getting involved in. And the core of Boathouse is 4 businesses right now, really 3, and one is kind of finding its way. The first is a company called Imagine, which is the best way to describe it is an executive hospitality company, or an executive retreats company. Really, we do highly curated small experiences globally for executives, C-suite executives. And a lot of the things that we do expose these people to things that I'm passionate about, or things collectively that our team is passionate about. And they're very closely tied to the creative process often, not always, but a lot of times. And we do things like songwriting retreats at Abbey Road, where C-suite executives will have the opportunity to write and record an original song in the same room that the Beatles recorded. And we help them kind of through the creative process there. We do events with F1 where we take groups to Formula One, and we kind of get under the hood, no pun intended,
so to speak.
Maybe pun intended. And there's a lot of examples of a lot of things in culinary, a lot of things in a lot of different areas. But that business has been a real joy, and my wife is my business partner in that business. And we do events for Ferrari. We do events for a number of other clients I can't mention. The technology company is actually an AI company we're doing a lot of hospitality stuff for, which is hysterical how this all kind of comes around. The second business is a creative agency, really. And at its core, it's a business designed to make new businesses, is the way I sort of describe it. It's really kind of a playground for me to play with other entrepreneurs, to work with them to develop new brands, new products, and things like that. Mm-hmm. But we also have a services model where we get hired like a creative agency, a branding agency, or a marketing agency. And we do, like a creative, like an agency.com or any other agency, we get fees and we have a rate card, and we support a lot of other companies. But fundamentally, what I'm interested in doing is continue to get involved early with lots of businesses, see if I can have an impact, see if I can help. And we have a team of creative people that also have a real passion for inception, from making things from scratch or being involved in that process.
That's great.
So that's Quartermaster.
That's Quartermaster? Okay.
Yeah, that's Quartermaster. Funny Water is, I'll do a quick little plug of Funny Water.
Very nice.
Funny Water came about when a friend of mine during COVID, who knew, because I had been starting the events business, and turns out COVID was in the beginning was not very good for a in-person travel business. He called me up and he's like, I know you're not busy. I have an idea for something. Do you want to play with it? So talk about entrepreneurial opportunism, right?
Yeah.
So he calls me. He's like, well, I have this thing. And I said, well, what is it? He said, it's Funny Water. And I said, what the hell is Funny Water? And he said, I don't know. We'll work on it together. We'll figure it out. And it was, I had no experience in alcoholic beverages or any of that, but I love creating brands. And I love making things. I love the creative process fundamentally. Yeah. And I think I've learned that that's at the core of everything I like to do, it's making things and starting with things early and creating them.
Yeah.
And we're about 4 or 5 years in on that business, and we're in 20 states, available in 41 states at this point. We're in Trader Joe's, we're in Kroger, we're in Total Wine and More. We're all over the place with it. I don't run that company because we found people much better at running the company than I am. I think it's one of those things you learn as you get older, is what you both are good at and what you want to be doing and what you're not good at. And so, but that company's been a real joy. And then it's funny how these things roll into each other. I got a call from my buddy Matt Stenreich, who turns out I went to high school with, who is one of the creators of Robot Chicken, the television show, the stop motion animated show. And his business partner in that has been Seth Green, the actor who we all grew up watching in movies.
Yep.
So Matt called me up and he said, we just did a writer's room. We came up with the crazy idea for a 80% ABV hard seltzer. So like an 80% alcohol hard seltzer that turns you into a werewolf. And I said, that's a terrible idea. He's like, yeah, but you got to hear the pitch. And lo and behold, I ended up in LA. I was already going to be out there, and I went and met the guys and these writers, and the two of them pitched me this idea. And for the last year and a half, we've been sort of creating what is now Hellbent, which is going to be hopefully another beverage company that is in the process of fundraising and all kinds of stuff for that. And then, we're helping a company with a THC beverage. We're helping a mouthwash company. We're helping all kinds of different businesses in terms of just getting involved in things from a real, I guess, entrepreneur perspective. And I don't know if that all makes any sense or sounds disjointed, but it's been really wonderful the last 5-6 years. I've been sort of working on these and developing them.
Well, I think it's really impressive, PJ, on the surface. But the thing that I'm most interested in is the other thing PJ didn't mention is he's an illustrator. You've done illustrations for Sports Illustrated and Fortune and big magazines. You're a musician. He's written songs with Martin Sexton and I assume lots of others and things like that. He's an accomplished musician. So you've got all this stuff. AI kind of enables people that may not have all the skills that you've developed to be able to do some of that stuff. And so for me, the thing that was most interesting in what you said was the thing I like to do is, right? And you like to be at the beginning, you like to build something. I would love for you to give us some perspective. Like, I feel like you're in a very rare position to be able to look at your life and say, okay, I know how I did this stuff analog, and then I know how I did it with the internet. And now you're able to look at it and say, here's how I might imagine this with AI. So can you just shed some light on like what you see the opportunity for people being able to take that thing that they want to express and express it in ways that they might not have imagined possible? Like, can you talk to that?
Yeah, it's got a lot of really great things that are happening, and probably for a lot of people, a lot of things that are really not as great. Where long-term careers, people who've been working in a particular field for 30, 40 years, their skill is becoming obsolete because AI is getting really good at it. Whereas creators, particularly early stage creators who haven't spent a lot of time developing a craft, have access to these things that allow them to illuminate ideas that they have very, very quickly. I don't know what I can't remember the question, but I'm always looking at it from both sides. But it's a part of everything that I'm doing now. There's no doubt about it.
But my question is that creator thing, like Rick Rubin, right? Like one of my things is like,
I know his book. I love his book. I read it over vacation. Yeah.
And one of my things is, everyone's got to find their inner Rick Rubin, or they don't have to, but like everyone, if you find your inner Rick Rubin, you now have like access to all these tools that let you do it. So I'm just curious about how you feel the democratization of all those skills, how's it going to empower, like, what is the core skill moving forward is maybe the question.
Well, we talked about this, I think, on that last podcast that I did with you, Kyle. We talked about, I've always been a big Steve Jobs fan. I've read a lot of books about him, and there's that film that Aaron Sorkin did, and there's one of my favorite quotes in it is when Seth Rogen, who plays Steve Wozniak, says to Jobs, "You don't code, you don't know how to, you don't make anything, you don't do anything. Like all these other people who work here have so much more value than you do. What do you make?" Or I can't remember. I'm not doing it justice, but I think you know what I'm referring to. And he says, he's the conductor. He conducts the orchestra. He takes all the talented people and knows how to put them together and drive them toward a vision. And the AI is going to be a tool for the conductors. It's going to be for the generalists. It's going to be on the downside, people who love to develop a craft. AI is going to be really good at doing it much faster than you in a lot of ways. But what it does allow creative people, Kyle, I mean, you fall right into this camp because you were always kind of a big thinker. Like the joke with Kyle at agency.com was get him in a room, let him go. He's going to give you 70 ideas, and there's going to be like 5 of them that are awesome. And then there's going to be a lot of crazy shit that's out there, right? You were sort of you were like an early AI engine that way because you had the ability to tap into all these impulses that you were able to distill. And I think it lets more people do that. It gives you more access to those things. That being said, it doesn't do all the work for you. It's like a really good helper. And a lot of it has to do with how well you know how to manipulate these platforms to get them to do what you want. So there is the learning curve with all of these. And what I find so interesting is that learning curve is, it takes a minute and then it's all new and you gotta there's a new learning curve, right? I was out sick from work for about a week, like 6 weeks ago. And I spent VEO3 had just come out. So I'm I bought a subscription and I just made crazy videos for probably the whole week. But what I found fascinating was it didn't work very well. And I had to figure out how to like game it to do what I wanted it to do a lot of times. And, the logic was a little wacky. And sometimes sometimes you'd say, don't give me audio. And it would just give you audio. And then sometimes you'd say, give me audio. And it wouldn't give you audio. Like, I'm like, I don't really know what's going on in this computer brain, but it was all over the place. But I think there's still, you talk about, right, like, in my case, like developing the skills as learning to draw really well or learning a concept with that or learning how to play an instrument or, I've mentioned to you in the last, 5 years, I've taught myself music production. I've really enjoyed learning how to record my own music and compose and really build, my own way. I think there's a learning curve in all these things. There's certain things it does quicker, but to really get good at them, it's going to take knowing which sort of platforms and tools to play with and integrate into each other. So I don't think it's just a layup. I think there's still a lot of work that has to be done to use these right. And I hear from a lot of my other friends that own businesses, they're like, I just don't have time. When the hell do you find time to figure out how to use these things? I mean, you mentioned Chat GPT 5. I haven't had a chance to touch it yet. I know it's completely different. I'm going to have to sort of relearn it a little bit. But I think what AI does is helps you minimize certain things in time, and it just increases a whole new set of things that are going to take time, right? I still look at it as craft to some degree, learning how to use these tools. And I just wanted to kind of go back to something I mentioned earlier, which is these paradigm shifts that happen and have happened, and it made you have to think about what you do completely differently. The first one was when I was in art school with desktop publishing, which is what led the way to, Kyle, everything that we did at agency.com, fundamentally. Photoshop, Illustrator, Quark Express back then. You sort of had to change how you were making things. And there was a giant rejection of those tools early on. I remember as an illustrator in school, I remember showing my illustrations to other illustrators and people that I admired and who were mentors of mine. And my drawings, the way I've always worked is I draw with a brush traditionally, scan it into the computer, and then I do a lot of manipulation and collage and painterly things in the computer. And the finish is a digital file. But early on, I got so much crap for that. People were like, well, where's the finish? What's the actual? There's no
That's
actual
not
art.
real art. Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? What is printmaking? I mean, it's no different.
Mm.
And they're like, yeah, but printmaking, use your hands. You're just using this machine. Now, I don't think there's an illustrator on the planet or artist who doesn't touch digital tools in some form or another, for particularly for delivery of work or for,
Mm.
I mean, it's just so those things are completely integrated into what we do. And that was really disruptive for a lot of people in publishing back then. And then you go fast forward to Flash and how there were businesses that were just doing Flash animation and these complex software platforms. And then Apple didn't put it on an iPad, and that whole thing got wiped out. And you had to now you had to learn social media.
Mhm.
This is the fun of being alive. I think is like,
I
as an
agree.
entrepreneur, is that shit is just going to keep changing, and
Yeah.
it's interesting, and you have to embrace it because.
Yeah. Well,
And I don't think it's just AI. I think this has been in my career. I'm 51, like 28, 9 years, something like that, whatever, 30 years. This has happened before. And I think you just have to be ready to pivot and move. You can't expect something you were really, really good at to have value for 40 years. I don't think that's realistic. So sorry, I
Yeah.
went on a big rant about
No,
a lot of
that's
these
exactly
things.
what I
don't know.
wanted to hear. It's funny the people that shifted into the digital art, from the analog, they're the ones now bitching about AI is not real art, right? So
Well, here I'll tell you a really crazy anecdote.
yeah, yeah.
So, I still illustrate, I still draw, right?
Uh-huh.
And we had a project, and I really wanted I thought my illustration style would really fit what we were doing, but I didn't have time to do it. So I got AI to create something that looked a lot like my work.
Yeah.
And the brand that we created is very much in those notes. The
Uh-huh.
wild thing is we saw this was for a festival. We did some creative for a music festival.
Uh-huh.
And we saw when they developed everything on site, they had taken those AI illustrations that we did and turned them into 3-story tall sculptures. So I'm like, if you just think about the path of that, it's wild. So from like kind of something I did, but not really, to a AI model building it, creating it digitally, to then following that for a totem that exists kind of in a place where there's going to be 30, 40,000 people, and it's 3 stories tall. Like
That's
that
amazing.
blows my mind.
Wow.
That's sort of even a thing,
Amazing. And why don't you ask PJ? So we ask all of our guests the same 3 questions. So we're gonna tee you up here.
Okay, so PJ, what was the tipping point when you knew you had to go all in on AI, and what happened next?
Well, so it's interesting talking from the employer's point of view of certain things, like versus I mean, I'm an illustrator and an artist, and I've worked for people, but I also own my own businesses. And this anecdote came from someone on my team who let me know that there was somebody working for me who was a copywriter who was sitting around doing nothing most of the day playing video games, and was using AI to write all his copy for everything that we needed. And I was like, well, that's not going to last. We have to get rid of this guy. And it sort of was very quickly made me understand, like, oh, now we can start integrating these tools. Now these tools, I can give these tools to a number of different people who are very smart and have really great taste, and they can cover some of these roles. So it's an interesting thing. You don't hear a lot about that. You hear usually like somebody getting laid off because of AI. Well, they did kind of get laid off because of AI, but it was because I discovered that they weren't really working at a certain point, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you told me one of the things that stuck with me when you spoke at the AI Salon, you talked about you gave those copywriting duties to the account person. And when I asked you, why did you keep the account person and not the copywriter? Do you remember your answer?
I think it was because they have taste. They understand.
That was it. That
yeah.
They have taste. I thought that was
but they also account directors understand relationships also, right? So there's the core part of somebody who's going to be client facing is client empathy. So when you take somebody with good taste who also has empathy for the person that they're drafting for. And you have a really good writing tool like chat whatever at that point, and it's a no-brainer, and it's nothing against the copywriter had taste. I think it's probably more than just taste. It's a broader empathy for what's needed for what we were doing at that point.
Well, I think it's your trust as a business owner that account person wasn't going to let something go out to a client that would, damage your brand or that would not serve them. Right. It was that trust that, so it's a combination of taste, but it's integrity. Right.
I think though that was Agent Beach. You guys hired people with taste. Like we were like a big group of wacky people who like loved getting their hands dirty and solving puzzles, but also kind of had pretty good taste about things, I think. And I found in other businesses I've been in, that's a thread that's been consistent. I look to hire people who get it, right? You can kind of get it in an interview too. My interviews are usually pretty brief, but I can quickly get a feel for whether someone's got that savvy that's going to be applicable to other things that we do.
Yeah, love it. Great. Okay, so question number 2. From your point of view, and I would say, from your expertise, but you have a lot of expertise, but just from your point of view, what's a trend in AI or just what's a trend in general that you're paying attention to right now and why?
Well, I think my answer is kind of twofold, and maybe it's just what's curious to me, what's interesting to me, or what I don't know anything about. So coding software in AI is so fascinating to me. And I know it's like this frontier that I am going to need to get into to build apps and software that help make certain things that I'm doing more efficient. But it's like the whole idea of it is blowing my mind. I haven't even had the time to sit and figure that out, but that's kind of next on my list. But the idea that I can sit and have a language model build me a game in like 5 minutes or whatever it is crazy to me. And I also, the paradigm shift of that is unbelievable. That there was a time when everybody said, like, if you're going to be successful in the future, learn how to code.
Yeah.
And now that's all thrown out the window. I mean, not completely, but I mean, there was such a confidence about people that people had about that, and particularly about coders and what they did. And man, that's a gut punch, and kind of a wild thing that's happening right now. So that's number one. The second is I'm really fascinated by how quickly we learn to recognize AI video and images. So, and again, this is something about taste, but there was when VEO3 came out and I started playing with and other people started playing with, and I started seeing ads come out. I can now spot that model not always, but you could spot the way people move, the way they interact, the way they speak in that model.
Sure, yeah.
It has an aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
And it's a style, right? So really what they're doing is, I find that a lot of these various platforms have a certain sensibility that it brings to the work that you can quickly recognize. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to make the creation of things from scratch. I'm going to predict this, but people who can make things that are unique, that are handmade, there's going to be a premium on those things. Yeah. Kind of the way that vinyl records are now a premium. It's not apples to apples, but the way that people really love putting a vinyl record on and listening to it. It's not the media, it's the nuance of it, right? So you can get Midjourney to make you just a stunning illustration, but it kind of a lot of it starts looking similar. Yep. And not to say you can't get to originality, but I think that's something I think people are going to be talking more and more about is the aesthetic of AI and how quickly the audience can perceive it. And I guess the third part of it is the backlash that I see in my businesses, particularly young people, when we say, we're going to play around with something in AI, we're going to do this in AI, they freak out. They're like, no, they feel they could see it, and they feel like it cheapens in some ways if we lean too heavily into it, like what it can do. They get it. They know it's a tool and we kind of need it and we're going to use it and we're going to try things, but they're also like, they cringe when they see something that is when they can read it as AI. And it's not that obvious to most eyeballs, but
Right.
there is an aesthetic that these tools seem to work in. If that, I don't know if you guys agree with that.
Oh, you can.
I think most consumers are going to be talking out of both sides of their mouths pretty soon, where for a lot of reasons we're going to prefer AI generated stuff, and then we're also going to want to have the things that AI has nothing to do with, and
Yeah.
those are going to have a premium. But
Yeah.
then they're going to be
I
all
think
the
we're
things that we like.
yeah, we're still kind of knocked out when we see something super realistic that AI made.
Yeah.
The more you see it, you're like, oh, that's one of those things that
Yeah.
thing made.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
You know?
the
Yeah.
acting in VO is all, it's all got a very similar, like when I first heard it, I was like, oh, that's really good. And now it's like, oh, that's that voice with that inflection and that joke structure.
Or just like there's a way that people talk and move. It's a little bit like
Yeah.
you're like, something's a little inhuman about that. So
Yeah. Yeah. I also think, back to your Imagine business, the in-person stuff, I think that there will be a premium on in-person experiences. And
I mean that's a thing we're really emphasizing is that's never going away.
never
People,
know.
a
That
lot of
goes
what we
up
do in
and
that
down.
business is really because we're on Zoom calls all the time, because people are working remote,
Mhm.
the need for in-person within companies, within business relationships is paramount at this point.
Yeah.
It's more important than it's ever been. And it's the companies that can offer those really amazing get-togethers and experiences that are in the same industries, right? Who are competing for the same talent. It's how are you bringing people together that differentiates you, which
Yeah.
is super encouraging to us. We love that that's happening now, especially coming out of COVID, where we were like,
I was going to
shut
say,
down
yeah.
for like 5 months.
Mhm.
But it really is true that there's even now I'm so fatigued by Zoom calls and video calls. It's part of my day to day. But when I can sit down and I mean, my wife and I joke about it. Whenever we show up for something now, like something good happens, a new
Mhm.
relationship,
Oh my God.
like
Yeah.
an opportunity that it didn't exist. Like, man, it's like the bond is so much
It's
more
like you're
potent
hungry
when you're
for
in
it.
person now.
Yeah.
Yeah, whereas it
Yeah.
used to be like, oh, I got to show up for another like cocktail hour. Like now it's like we're there, we're like, oh, we're really talking to each other and engaging, which is
people good.
Yeah.
well, I know, right? But it's the crazy thing that the technology is almost putting a premium now on
Yes.
getting together and going to a
Pushing us back.
concert or going to or traveling or
Mhm.
seeing, actually smelling and feeling an experience versus just
Mhm.
watching a
Yeah.
cool video online. So
Yeah.
Love it.
I think of it as medicine. There's a required daily amount of in-person activity, and it might not always be daily because of the world that I live in, but for sure a few times a week, or I'm just crispy. I'm just not me. I'm living some two-dimensional cardboard cutout life.
what I
Okay,
love
so
is the people in my there's employees we have in their late 20s. Sorry, just a real quick anecdote, but
no, please, yeah,
we went to hybrid and they were adamant about it. Like, we really want to work from home a couple days a week, but we don't want to work from home the whole time. We want to see each
yeah,
other. So
yeah,
they're adamant about, we have an office and we're there 3 days a week.
Oh, that's
And
great.
they all say, like, I don't know how we do this without seeing each other and like
yeah,
talking to each other about things. So
yeah.
yeah, anyway.
Yeah, it's not the same. So, what does AI readiness mean to you, and what would you
Oh man.
advise someone who's not yet off the sidelines?
I feel like I'm not yet off the sidelines, honestly. Like, it's so funny. We did this podcast, whatever it was, last year, Kyle, and I was positioned as an AI expert, and I'm just like, I don't know if they realize I don't know what I'm doing. I think that the tools change so fast. I think it's carving out time in your week or on your weekend to like sit and have a curiosity about it. I do think this is moving faster than people can keep up with,
Sure.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I play in a lot of places, and I'm sure there's a lot of tools out there that I should be more aware of, or things that are part of my workflow. But I don't have the time. I have 3 kids. I have a family. I have these 4 enterprises. Like, it took me getting sick to like sit
Yeah.
with a model. So I think AI readiness is almost doing that like discipline of carving a day out or a half a day in your schedule and saying, don't talk to me. I'm just going to play. I'm going to explore. I'm going to see. And I think it's also making sure that you're building a culture as an employer or a leader in whatever it is you're doing of curiosity about technology and making sure people understand. If you don't really get a handle on this and you don't have a curiosity about this, you will get left behind. I think that's fair to say at this point, that it is getting integrated into our usual tools, but the real power and efficiency is coming from people who are carving the time out to really learn and find things. So I don't know. I think readiness is like,
I think that's perfect.
the only thing we don't have enough of is time typically.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like when AI is used right, it really like gives you more of it, but it takes time to get to the point where
Good
you're getting
enough,
that level of
Yeah.
efficiency. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I love it. I love it. Well, PJ, this has been awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny, you say, I positioned you as an AI expert and you're like, I absolutely wasn't. The imbalance right now is so great that if you know what ChatGPT is, and to your point, like you had an awareness that an employee was using this, and then you realized, oh, if this text here's how I'm going to affect my business. Whether or not you're tactically up to speed on being able to create it yourself, like that's way ahead of the curve right now. So,
And for what it's worth, I've never fired anybody. That was the only guy who was a writer that I had to let go for that reason, but for obvious reasons, right? But all the people we hire, we're really kind of particular about creatives and thinkers and people with taste. We have not made any layoffs yet because of AI. It hasn't replaced the real substantive job. Now, granted, my businesses are a bit smaller than like a massive blah blah blah, right? But I don't know. I think for people who are hardworking and are curious, and have like passion, this is all good news. I think for people, who like being in a 9 to 5 kind of just easy run, nothing too. Yeah, and I have nothing against that. Like everybody's different. Everyone's got different priorities in their lives. But for those people, this is going to be really difficult. It's going to be more challenging.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough.
I think that's
But
good.
also, that's okay. Even for them, we're talking about the adaptability thing. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But when it does get better, it's going to be so much better. Those people have opportunity to self-actualize in ways that they haven't even explored yet.
The big question I have, and it's a good friend of mine in the neighborhood said this to me. He's like, shouldn't these, and I don't know if I agree with him, but it's like a thing that I've been thinking about. Should these companies, or should businesses in general, be taking the time to help employees transition to these platforms, or figure out a way, someone whose job is going to be obsolete, is there a path for them to become more relevant? And can businesses, organizations, or I think just businesses in general, because it's where all the commerce is, but do we have a responsibility as business owners to help our team, our employees, stay relevant and stay on top of, not just for the business's sake, but for their sake.
Yes.
So that's a much bigger thing, and I haven't really got my head around it, but I thought it was such an interesting thought, right? Because there have been paradigm shifts in technology where businesses did sort of commit to education to help those employees, kind of like, okay, we're doing this new thing, everybody's got to get on this new thing. I don't hear, and maybe this sounds very socialist to me or something, but I just don't hear a lot of that conversation happening. How do we prepare? How do we support all this technological innovation? I hear everybody worried about the Terminator and Skynet, but I don't know. I want to hear more about how are we getting everybody ready for this? Because it's changing things really, really fast. So my buddy Matt will love that I mentioned that if he sees this.
Yeah, no. I think it's a huge one. It's a whole other episode, but maybe as the tools get better, I think we're gonna have to confront that more and more as business owners and as just as people. why don't you tell the people what they should pay attention to of all these? Where do you want them to go? What do you want them to check out?
Hey, if you're a C-suite executive, check out Imagine, and we can do a really amazing experience for you. If you're a young brand and an entrepreneur, check out Quartermaster. We can help. And if you like drinking, check out the other ones. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I just hope we're having a great fun ride. Everything's been really, really fun. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for
being
here.
PJ.
PJ, great.
Kyle, anytime. I love spending time with you. So
likewise, man. Great.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Bye.
See you later.